For the last 200 years, every ruler in Europe has wanted a menagerie or a zoo, and has almost always had one. From King Henry's polar bear to the Atlas lions of the Tower of London, we Brits are no strangers to this concept. However, many of you may not know this desire stretched all the way to Central America, where the Aztecs ruled over 6 million peoples. This vast society, with access to plenty of resources, used its trading networks to acquire some of the most exotic animals of North America, ever to be assembled in one place. Even humbling, the largest of modern zoos. In this video, I would like to talk about Emperor Moctezuma the Second of the Mexican Empire, his lavish collection of extinct and alive animals, and the tragedy bestowed upon his civilization. The diaries of conquistadors that searched for treasure with Hernan Cortez wrote more about the scale of Moctezuma Zoo than they did any other aspect of Aztec civilization. Located in Tenochtitlan, where modern-day Mexico City was built, it held an exciting and unique range of never-before-seen animals to Europeans. It is important to highlight that many of the animals we're going to talk about were not directly named, but have been inferred by descriptions and animal skeletons found by archaeologists. Owning a zoo of this scale at this time in Aztec society was an extremely impressive feat and showed the true wealth of their empire. Visualizing the zoo structure is quite difficult. We know predators would likely have been kept in cages made out of stone. Stone-built pools would have been where marine life was enclosed. Herbivores would have been kept in courtyards, gardens, and stables, though once again, we really don't have a lot to go off here. There is also the mention in accounts of a human zoo, though it's debated whether this actually existed, or whether it was made to sensationalise the Aztecs, and perhaps try and justify what the Spanish would later do. So I've decided to sort of leave it out of this video, though it's important that you're aware that it exists. 300 keepers were needed to take care of the animals of the zoo. They would need to be supplied with human and fish carcasses, and likely a huge amount of land. Furthermore, I found sources saying an estimated 20 to 200 turkeys were slaughtered each day to meet food demands. We know the predators would likely have been kept in cages, with stone and adobe walls, I believe I said that correctly. Stone-built pools would have been where marine life was enclosed. Herbivores would have been kept in courtyards, gardens, and stables. There is also the mention in some accounts of human zoos, though it's not known whether this is to justify the brutal invasion of the Aztec Empire, so it could be a way to sensationalize their culture. There were certainly human sacrifices, though. The earliest fish tanks are from Mesopotamia around 2500 BC, but Tenochtitlan was still impressive for having both freshwater and saltwater fish in their aquariums, which were basically ponds, having around 20 in the zoo. The aquariums were perhaps the most impressive piece of engineering, using a complex water flow system that would have to go all through the city to reach the ponds. We have multiple remains of animals in the zoo and the palace areas, and stress marks and bone deformities suggest the animals of the zoo had characteristics of abuse in captivity, something that might have been necessary for the continued containment of animals such as mountain lions, bears, and of course birds of prey. The Aztecs created the first ever aviary in the known world, and instead of being made out of metal bars or perhaps glass like the Jurassic World films, it was made out of wooden bars. This is likely the earliest historical example of a bird aviary being created, and it hosted macaws and other common birds, though no birds of prey, so don't expect a Jurassic World-like breakout scene with the inaccurate pterosaurs. The Victorians would eventually create and perhaps even adopt the ingenuity of the Aztecs in making their own aviaries in the 1800s, though whether it was directly inspired by them is unknown, and of course this cycle of weirdly wanting to host birds in massive cages continues to this day. One building at the zoo was entirely devoted to the birds of prey the Aztecs had exhibited, such as eagles, which show stress marks on the lower parts of their legs, suggesting they were tied up on a perch for a large period of their lives, likely not having a very enjoyable quality of life. Bone fusion and abnormal growth also adds to the idea that they were kept close in captivity and did not live in ideal conditions. It's very interesting to think we have records of the Aztecs training hawks, so maybe a form of falconry for the royal elites was practiced in the zoo, though we don't really know. One of the most shocking animals to be exhibited at the zoo was an animal of great rarity, and it was called the Mexican bull, as the Spanish so bluntly put it. The account goes as follows.
It has crooked shoulders, with a bunch on its back like a camel, its flanks dry, its tail large, and its neck covered with hair like a lion. It is cloven-footed, its head armed like that of a bull, which it resembles in fierceness, with no less strength and agility.
What was this animal? None other than the American bison. This creature did at a fairly recent point have a southern herd that went into what is now northern Mexico. However, this was the Aztec Empire and things were very different, and the logistical nightmare of transporting these animals all the way to Tenochtitlan is quite impressive, because they wouldn't have had trains, they wouldn't have had cars, definitely not planes, so presumably they got the young animals and took them. But even then they'd have to take on a herd and learn how to hunt a herd. It's really, really interesting, and it really shows the might of the Aztec Empire. It certainly would have been the crown of Moctezuma the Second's collection. It's actually insane how this could have been the first time Europeans encountered the American bison, and it was at a zoo. Isn't that weird? As unlikely as it may be, considering this is a royal collection, it is kind of fascinating to think about a world where Aztecs were taking their children to the zoo, or at least the Aztec elites were taking them there, and were inspiring a whole generation of passionate people about nature and animals, even if it might not be in the same modern standards we hold zoologists and scientists to. It's just so cool to think that this could be a universal experience starting all the way back in the Aztec Empire. As I said before, many animal carcasses have been found in the former range of the zoo. Isotope analysis showed the carnivores of the menagerie were likely fed maize and corn, since the bone showed C4 carbon isotope present in this food. Pumas were likely fed a combination of maize and rabbits, and these rabbits would have also been fed maize, showing why the C4 isotopes were so high. Mountain lions were likely eating omnivores as well, as they had a high concentration of nitrogen, meaning they may have been eating dogs and maybe even humans as well. Jaguars and lynx were likely also present as exhibits. Maybe the Aztecs practiced their own form of Roman damnatio ad bestias, or condemnation to beasts, similar to our Atlas Lion video, meaning criminals of the city of Tenochtitlan may have found themselves being torn apart by big cats when they committed a crime. Art of pumas eating human hearts can be seen here, so it's evident this may have been a common practice within the empire. The Spaniards were particularly impressed by the silvery bear, or Mexican brown bear, a species that would cease to exist in 1976, hundreds of years after its first Western account. It wouldn't have been a huge trek to transfer a brown bear, but it's still very impressive. I would like to make a video one day on extinct bears, so look forward to that in the future maybe. Sloths, tapirs, and armadillos must have very likely been a surprise to the Spanish, who had probably never seen anything like them, contrasting the familiar wolves, deer, and fowls that were exhibited. There was also what we would now equate to being a reptile house, something that apparently shocked the Spanish the most.
They also have in that cursed house many vipers and poisonous snakes, which carry their tails things that sound like bells. These are the worst vipers of all, and they keep them in jars in great pottery vessels with many feathers. And there they lay their eggs and rear their young, and they give them to eat the bodies of the people who have been sacrificed, and the flesh of the tiny dogs which they are in the habit of breeding.
Thank you to Jay the researcher for doing that segment. Religiously, the zoo came in handy as eagles were associated with the sun and the war god, which I can't pronounce the name of, but I'm going to put it up on screen now. And of course, jaguars symbolize elite warriors, jaguar warriors. These things were not just supposed to be a spectacle, but they had a lot of cultural and mythological significance to the Aztecs. Previously I mentioned the sort of people that may have went to this zoo, and we pretty much have no idea. We all have some passing knowledge of the terrible Spanish conquests of Mexico. An empire was destroyed within only 2 years, bringing the end to an almost century-long civilization. Most knowledge of the zoos, the palaces, and the people of Tenochtitlan are buried under Mexico City, the 5th largest city in the world today. Still, we see the descendants of Europeans drain wealth and increase inequality in countries like Mexico. The scars of colonialism cut deep. Whether Moctezuma's zoo actually existed in our perception can be brought into question first off by Cortez's letters to the King of Spain. Here he highlights the zoo itself and basically talks about first off the human zoo and also the birds, not really going into detail on many other things. Now, he may have had a specific reason for depicting this part of Tenochtitlan, and the reason being that he had disobeyed his orders and went from Cuba to Mexico instead of directly to Mexico like he was told to. Of course, this isn't the first time conquistadors have lied about parts of the civilizations they have found to get out of trouble. And here, this could be quite likely because Cortez was a really bad man. As well as this, the Florentine Codex, a group of books written by basically Aztec descendants who were overlooked by priests, basically recorded a lot of parts of Aztec culture, and especially of Tenochtitlan. Now, the interesting thing about this is that they barely highlight the zoo at all. They do have some depictions of it, but the whole time they were being overlooked by these priests, and a lot of the stuff they wrote about could have been manipulated. Most of it is in Spanish. I believe some of it might be in French, but I'm not too sure. I can't read either language. If you have any more interesting information on that, I would really appreciate it. And the third and most likely to believe source is this 1524 German map of Tenochtitlan. Now you may go, why is it German? Why is it not Spanish? We don't really know. But it seems to be based off first-hand accounts from Cortez and highlights, in a very small corner that I'm hopefully highlighting on screen right now, a little zoo with some bird images, some people, and some animals. So, likely, some sort of collection of animals existed on Tenochtitlan. So likely Moctezuma owned some collection of animals for sure. So there isn't a lot to work off here, but it's still very interesting. I thought you should go away with that knowledge, and feel free to question the existence of the zoo in the comment section down below. I'm very thankful to my supporters on Patreon, Goji Berry, Toby, Adam, and Katie. Their support means the world to me. If you'd like to support me over there, videos are going to come out earlier and earlier, and there's going to be extra content, archival content, and behind the scenes scripts. Also, a Discord server. We shut down the main Discord server, and you can only really find me over there now. So if you want a direct line of communication with me, you're welcome to join that through the Patreon. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Jay the Researcher. He's been a huge supporter of the channel, and he's a very kind person, and he's just a wonderful guy. Go check him out. Thank you very much for watching.